So the vision is the smart and sustainable community. The vision is broadband is actually part of the nervous system. It actually is a nervous system. So I don't know if you've, my favorite book in college was called Gaia. I won't bore you with the details, but many may be familiar with it. And it's really about how the Earth is kind of a homeostatic system that's self-correcting. So you've got this, in this case, you've all heard plenty about One Community in our regional efforts. It's a regional system, and the lifeblood could be this broadband, much like the other utility pieces. So we've got this nervous system, and the vision is how do you become a high-performing community? Graham actually wrote a book, High-Performance Government. We broaden our vision a little bit. Imagine if all the assets were just the communities, regardless of whether it was public or private. So the question is, how do you become a high-performing community? And to give you the contrast, let's think about Asia. Asia builds cities from scratch in short periods of time for 1 billion people. So how do they design their communities? Of course, they start with the nervous system. So very high-performing. You can only imagine the kind of technology they build into their green buildings, into their green systems, into their industrial parks. And they think about Graham mentioned the revenue and the costs. The sustainability and the value creation is built in. And actually, many of them are 100% from a green perspective, 100% self-sufficient as relates to waste and energy. So how do you take industrial communities like many of those in the United States and leverage broadband to actually get from here to there? And so it's really going to come down to collaboration. So again, it's about a connected community. It's this nervous system. We want to get responsive. We want visibility into how we invest our resources. So I tried to put together some potentially provocative ideas for you. So let's see how I'm tracking the minutes here. So I guess one is telework. So in the next 10 years, I'm guessing that 40% of you will be working at home. I'm guessing that probably 70% of your healthcare services will be done in your living room, delivered in your living room. As Graham mentioned, the technology is there. It's really just connecting the dots, extending the resources, the visibility. Some of us may call it standards. We're closer than you might imagine. The technology capabilities are all there. It's actually just connecting the loose ends and making sure we can all talk to each other. So high-performance government. One of the drivers of actually government, which I think is about 10 years behind the other sectors in the use of technology, is actually e-campaigning. Obama, in a very short period of time, raised over $750 million on the internet. So I think government is coming around. I'm sad that it's e-campaigning, it's driving it. But I'm very ambitious. I have very ambitious goals for them making progress and leveraging the private sector. E-democracy. I think as we've now got about 60% of America online, I think that is going to actually fuel a more populist movement. I think we're going to have not just special interests, we're actually going to have a much larger, much more diverse audience with a voice, and an easy voice. And the busy people are going to actually be able to engage in political discussions. The barriers to staying on top of political issues, campaign issues, are going to collapse. And so I think we're going to see a much more engaged citizen group. And I think business skills are going to be much more embraced at a political level. We see mayors in areas. We've got Graham in Fort Wayne. You've got Bloomberg in New York. They understand that the infrastructure's got in place for their businesses, their public and their private sectors to thrive, and they're doing what they need to do. We've found that politicians in general, especially lifelong politicians, don't have the operating skills and the technology skills to position their enterprise, which is a multi-thousand-person enterprise quite commonly. They don't position that enterprise and think of it as how do I sustain it? How do I maximize our taxpayer dollars? So again, e-democracy, I think, is going to be a real powerful force, and the leadership that Graham mentioned is going to transition to folks that embrace technology, are going to invest in technology, and I think that's the only way we're going to be able to sustain the government that we're talking about. So circling it back around, this nervous system, we're talking about connected transportation, connected utilities, connected health, all with each other, all with visibility, no redundancies. Imagine our 360-degree support at for the low-income folks that get touched by so many different government agencies, so many different ways, so many folks that don't get services that they need. And again, the cost would be a fraction of what they are. So again, talking about provocative thoughts and theories. So more pragmatically, I see wrapping up the business model. So how do we kind of get from the vision to where we're at today? I see government, the high-performing ones, I think, are going to actually be service providers. I think our big counties are actually going to be service providers for a fee to municipalities. Provocative thoughts. They haven't done it before. I think we're going to see those that aren't good at it decide what they are going to be good at, and I think they're going to actually just embrace it. And we're going to see actually the new governing influences will be those that are high performing. I think they're going to be the most influential on first your state and then a super region's governance structure. That's what's going to drive influence in economics. And again, our enemy here is global competition. I think it's inevitable. All this is inevitable. It's a question in the United States, are we going to be leaders or are we going to be laggards? Hopefully our government is in a position to kind of catch back up and put us in a position to actually be leaders again. And if you don't know, well, we haven't some new guests here, the United States does not have a competitive digital infrastructure.